What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel for the 6th Ask Me Anything episode of the NHL season. I hope you all had a fantastic weekend. This should be another good episode because, as always, you guys killed it with the questions. Huge shout out to every single one of you who took the time to come up with a question and leave it on the post. Even the ones that don't get featured in the video, just know I read every single one and I appreciate all of you guys. And of course, if this is your first time checking out the channel and you want NHL content just like this all year round, hit that subscribe button. We are closing in on the end of 2023. Let's see if we can hit 75,000 subscribers before January 1st. So with that all being said, let's go ahead and kick off the episode with the first question from LoserKids003, who says, what would the Columbus Blue Jackets have to give up to get Elias Lindholm and Johnny Hockey back together? Also, really appreciate the kind words, and I'm glad you enjoy this series. As much as getting Elias Lindholm in Columbus and reuniting him with Johnny Gaudreau may help Johnny Gaudreau get going, obviously he's had a very rough go of it so far this season. I don't think it makes any sense in the world for Columbus to go out and be buyers of any kind right now. The Blue Jackets were aggressive in the offseason, wanting to improve the roster, and they brought in the likes of Ivan Provorov and Damon Severson. And the expectation for the Blue Jackets heading into this season, at least internally, was that they would take a massive step forward and be competitive, may even be competing for a wildcard spot. But based on what we've seen from the Blue Jackets this season, this team is nowhere close to being a playoff team, even a fringe playoff team. At this point, I feel like it's a lot more likely we see the Blue Jackets make a big splash by trading away one of their big name players as opposed to going out and trying to get help and improve the roster and trade for somebody, in this case Elias Lindholm. The Columbus Blue Jackets are in a very difficult spot right now. I think it's going to be fascinating to see what kind of changes this team makes over the next calendar year, because they got to do something. They have to commit to one singular direction, and a lot of you may be thinking they do have a direction. They're at the bottom of the NHL right now. It's going to be another year of them picking at the top of the NHL draft, and while that may be true, this is a team that's not bad by design. They're not in the same boat as teams like the San Jose Sharks and the Chicago Blackhawks. The Blue Jackets were buyers in the offseason. This is a team that is trying to be good, and yet they suck. Moving along to the next question, this one comes from Donkey Kong Enjoyer, who says, what are your thoughts on Lafreniere's great start to the season, around a half goal per game pace, defending well, showing confidence, etc. On the opposite side, how do you feel about Kaapo Kakko's disastrous start to the season? It's been really nice to see Lafreniere's great start to the season. This is a guy that was written off by a lot of people heading into the season. A lot of people wanted him traded, and while I still think it's unlikely that he ever develops into, the franchise-altering player that a lot of people expected him to be when the Rangers selected him first overall in 2020, he is by no means a bust. Lafreniere is playing like a legit top 6 forward right now, and the Rangers have obviously benefited from it. They are 12-2-1 so far to start the season. They've been playing unbelievable, 9-0-1 in their last 10. The forward group is clicking on all cylinders right now. It's incredibly well balanced, and I think Lafreniere deserves a lot of credit for that. The Rangers have been waiting and waiting on Lafreniere to take that next step and really fit into the top 6 and take that group to the next level, and it seems like that is finally happening. As far as Kaapo Kakko goes, I feel like there would be a lot more focus on him and his slow start to the season if the Rangers were struggling, but they aren't. His lack of offensive production has not hurt them in the slightest. He's got just 1 goal and 1 assist in 15 games, which is obviously, a far cry from the pace he scored at last season, where he finished the season just shy of the 20 goal mark. He finished with 18. Despite the lack of production, Kaapo Kakko still has had good impacts defensively, but for a guy you selected 2nd overall back in 2019, you expect a lot more out of him than just, being a middle 6 defensive specialist, and that's kind of what he's playing like right now. Moving along now to the next question. This one comes from Devin Sr., who says, what are your thoughts on the games in Sweden so far these last couple of days? They were so much fun to watch, and also I really appreciate the kind words. I'm glad you like the videos. I thought the global series from Sweden was fantastic. I don't think the NHL could have asked for it to go any better. You had obviously the big storylines with William Nylander producing incredibly well in his home country of Sweden in front of his friends and family, getting the OT winner in the Leafs' second game against the Wild. Lucas Raymond of the Red Wings, another native of Sweden, playing in front of his friends and family for the first time at the NHL level in his home country. He had a goal in each of the Red Wings' 2 games. Overall, I really enjoyed it, despite the fact that the Red Wings got just 1 of 4 possible points. I thought the games were a lot of fun, and the NHL is probably pretty happy with how things went. And I'm definitely looking forward to the NHL doing more of these. Austin Matthews said he wants one in Mexico City, which would be really cool. I think a global series in Germany would be a lot of fun as well. Have guys like Draisaitl, Stützle, Seider, and Peterka as kind of the headliners for that one. Definitely let me know down below in the comments where you guys would like to see the NHL have the next global series. The next question we have comes from Jay in the Tub, who says, what do you think a Hall haul for Nikita Zadorov looks like. When do you expect a trade to happen? With how his trade request was made public and how his agent took to Twitter to kind of voice his displeasure with how things have been handled in Calgary, I think a trade with Zadorov is probably going to happen sooner rather than later. As far as what a trade return could look like for the Calgary Flames, I don't expect it to be anything crazy. In my opinion, Zadorov is not the kind of player that you give up a top level prospect or a first round draft pick for. Zadorov is not a guy who's going to play in your top pairing or eat a lot of minutes. He's never averaged more than 20 minutes of ice time per game in a single season in his career. He's more of a number 4, number 5 defenseman, but he is a really good one in that role. Obviously extremely physically imposing. He's very mobile and is a really good skater for his size as well. Obviously last season had kind of a outlier of a year with 14 goals in 82 games. That's not really something we should expect from Zadorov year in and year out, but he can chip in offense here and there. He's had back-to-back 20-plus point seasons heading into this year. With all that in mind, and considering the fact that he is in the final year of his contract, he's set to become a UFA at season's end, I think a return for Calgary could look something like maybe a second-round draft pick and a mediocre prospect, or maybe like a B-level prospect and a third or a fourth, something like that. You also have to keep in mind it's another one of those situations, unfortunately for the Flames, where a trade request was made public. Everybody knows he's not going to re-sign there, similar to the Toffoli situation, which may lead to a lackluster return for the Flames. This next question comes from Hatrick Kane, who says, whose point streak to start the year is more impressive, Nylander or Panarin? I'm going to have to go with William Nylander on this one. Artemi Panarin has been a solidified superstar, one of the best players in the league for a long time now. Ever since becoming a member of the New York Rangers, he's finished every year with them well over a point per game. Although he's never hit the 100 point mark, he's scored well over a 100 point pace with the Rangers on multiple occasions. We've kind of came to expect this stuff from Artemi Panarin, but when it comes to William Nylander, I mean, last season was the first time in his career he finished a season over a point per game. He had 87 in 82 games, but this season he has taken his game to a whole other level, and on a team that includes the likes of Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner, William Nylander has been the Maple Leafs' best player this season. He's got points in all 17 of the Maple Leafs games so far this season, 27 total. He's in the midst of one of the longest point streaks to open up a season since 2000. Of course, the only downside for the Leafs with how Nylander is playing right now is it's a contract year. He's going to be a UFA at season's end, and he is quickly pricing himself out of Toronto, in my opinion. There was so much talk heading into the season, is William Nylander a $10 million player? Is there going to be a team out there willing to give him that kind of contract? And now we're kind of asking the question, is he an $11.5 million player? This next question comes from Lordix9, who says, what are your thoughts on Laine being a healthy scratch tonight against the Flyers? Could we see a trade soon? It may also just be a personal day, since it's 1 year ago today since his father's passing. That is something that was brought up a lot when it was announced that Laine would be a healthy scratch, but based off of what the Blue Jackets head coach said, the comments he made, I don't think that had anything to do with him being a scratch. Obviously, Laine does have to be held accountable for his play, but in my opinion, really ever since getting to Columbus, this is a guy who has been mismanaged, from when he first got there and John Tortorella was the head coach, and Tortorella was trying to make him into some checking power forward, which obviously just isn't Laine's game. And now this season, where they started the year with him playing center, which I think was just so stupid. Despite the fact that Laine has just 2 goals in 9 games this year, I still feel like he is one of the best natural goal scorers in the league, has one of the best shots in the league, and yet he hasn't consistently played with good setup guys. I know obviously Johnny Gaudreau is there, who is one of the best playmakers of the 2010s, but all of a sudden Johnny Gaudreau is just not good anymore. I don't know what's going on in Columbus. It's just like, it feels like everything that could go wrong for them is right now. It's been an incredibly disappointing first month and a half of the season for them. And to answer the other part of your question, could we see a Laine trade? I don't think so. The guy makes $8.7 million through 2025-26, just 3 points in 9 games. With that cap hit and that kind of production, that's not a very valuable asset right now. And then obviously if Patrick Laine does heat up, which we know he's capable of doing, and gets his value back up, Columbus is probably just going to want to hold on to him when he's playing well. So I don't think we see a Laine trade. Moving along now, this next question comes from Alpha Woods, who says, most underrated rookie this season. If we're talking one that hasn't really been getting a lot of media attention at all, let's actually stay in Columbus for this one and go with Dmitry Voronkov, who was a 4th round draft pick by Columbus in 2019. He's got 8 points in 13 games with Columbus so far this season, playing very limited minutes, which in my opinion is very impressive on a Columbus team that has really struggled offensively to start the season. That's 1 more point than Johnny Gaudreau has on the year, and Voronkov has played a lot less games. So I think he has definitely been a very underrated rookie to start this season. Next up, this question comes from Serial Miller, who says, if you had the ability to view one past NHL moment live of your choice, what would it be and why? I gotta go with the Red Wings winning the cup in 2008 over the Penguins. Obviously, it was the most recent time the Red Wings won the Stanley Cup. Growing up, my favorite player was Henrik Zetterberg. He obviously won the Conn Smythe in that 2008 playoff run. I feel like that would have been really cool to see. One hockey moment that I would actually like to see live, even over the Red Wings winning the Cup in 2008. I didn't say this because I don't think it qualifies because you said NHL moment, but being in the building when Sidney Crosby scored the OT winner in the 2010 Olympics from Vancouver, I feel like that would have been unbelievable. So I really wish I could have experienced that live. The next question we have comes from Zickifier, who says, what do you think about the Wild situation and Kaprizov not being himself right now? It's gotten pretty ugly for the Wild. Honestly, with the way they've started the season, the fact that they are just 5-8-4, honestly, I think is a good thing. Their record could be a lot worse right now. They have not been able to get a save from either Fleury or Gustafsson. The defense hasn't been good, and while the offense actually started the season pretty hot, it has definitely came back down to earth. And like you said, Kaprizov hasn't been himself. He's really struggled, especially compared to how he's played the last couple seasons. On paper, the Minnesota Wild are a lot better of a team than the way they're playing right now. Guys like Fleury and Gustafsson and Kaprizov, they are a lot better than the way they're playing right now. But if they continue to dig themselves deeper and deeper into this hole to start the season, I don't know if they have the kind of roster that's going to be able to go on some incredible run to get back into the playoff hunt. If they aren't able to turn things around relatively quickly, I think this team is in serious jeopardy of missing the playoffs this year. The next question we have comes from Nick Holmes, who says, what do you think of the Arizona Coyotes? Really strong start and the team seems to be really gelling together. Do you think they have a shot at the playoffs? And if so, how insane would Mullet be during their first playoff series? It would definitely be insane, a small rink like that just full on packed with the most diehard Coyotes fans. That atmosphere would be incredible. I want to see it happen. One of my bold predictions heading into this season was that Arizona would finish the year with a record of 500 or better, and so far so good on that one. They're 8-7-2, so they are over 500. They occupy the second wildcard spot in the Western Conference, a Western Conference that is just wide open right now. You have teams like Calgary, Edmonton, Minnesota, and Seattle who are vastly underperforming, and if that keeps up, it definitely opens the door for a team like the Arizona Coyotes to squeak into the playoffs in one of those wildcard spots. This next question comes from the Five Bros, who says, what is wrong with Ville Husso? He just can't seem to figure it out, but it's not like the Wings defense has been giving him too much help anyways. Would you like to see more action from Alex Lyon after his performance overseas? Yes, I definitely would like to see Lyon get more starts. I thought he looked good. Obviously, Detroit kind of had a meltdown in the third period against the Maple Leafs, but a lot of that was the defense, which, like you said, the defense has not been good, I don't think, in front of any of the goaltenders really for the most part this season. But Husso, Reimer, it's just been really inconsistent play from both those guys. They've had stretches where they looked really good, but not consistent enough by any means. In my opinion, the Red Wings are not a good enough team to make the playoffs if they're getting mediocre goaltending, so I think one of these guys, whether it's Reimer, Husso, or Alex Lyon, really have to step up and solidify themselves as the 1A option in net, because I think it's really wide open at this point. No one has really taken the job and ran with it. And now finally, finishing out the video with a question from Hugh Barkers, who says, at this point, are you still confident we'll see a new team from the Atlantic make the playoffs, or have you begun to think otherwise? It's obviously still very early, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't starting to think otherwise. Teams like Tampa, Florida, Toronto, and Boston, the consistency is just so much better than young up-and-coming teams like the Red Wings, Sabres, and Senators. You got Buffalo and Ottawa struggling to stay above 500 right now. The Red Wings obviously started 5-1, and at that point, the Red Wings fans were on top of the world, but since that 5-1 start, they've been a bottom half of the league type of team. This may not be the year of change in the Atlantic Division just yet. I hope I'm wrong. I hope one of Detroit, Ottawa, or Buffalo takes off and gets into the playoffs, but I wouldn't count on it at this point. So that is going to wrap up this week's episode of the Ask Me Anything series. Again, like I mentioned at the start, I want to give a huge thank you to everybody who took the time to come up with a question and leave it on the post. Even the ones that don't get featured in the video, just know I read every single one, and I appreciate all of you guys. You all make this series so much fun for me to do every single week. If you enjoyed today's episode and you want another one next Monday, please be sure to leave a like. That is the best way to show your support. And most importantly, if this is your first time checking out the channel and you want NHL content just like this all year round, hit that subscribe button, and I will talk to you all again soon.